Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. After a recent resurgence of terrorism in Pakistan, many developments have happened as far as US support for Pakistan in counter-terrorism domain is concerned. Many statements have been made. The US side has expressed unconditional support to Pakistan in its battle, especially against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, and also affirming Pakistan's right to defend itself. A couple of practical measures, including the approval of $450 million for the sustenance of the F-16 flight for the counterterrorism operations in Pakistan, as well as a provision of $15 million in the US's budget for this year for enhancing the security along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border as well. Now, we earlier saw a mid-level defense dialogue with the agenda of expanding coordination on strategic issues was also held between the two sides. Now, a two-day counter-terrorism dialogue was also held between the two sides. As per the statement released by the US Embassy in Pakistan, the US wants to maintain its counter-terrorism cooperation with Pakistan despite having withdrawn from Afghanistan. It has also hinted at the revival of the post-9/11 era initiatives to assist Pakistan in this particular domain. At the same time, a Pakistan Foreign Office has said in a statement that the two-day discussions covered a range of topics that included counterterrorism cooperation at multiple forums, assessment of regional counterterrorism landscape, cybersecurity, and countering violent extremism. At the same time, we have seen that Pakistan's Defense Minister, Khaja Mohammad Asif, has also said that an official delegation of the interim Afghan authorities is due in Pakistan soon for the talks on counter-terrorism measures. Earlier, we saw a high-powered delegation led by Defense Minister Khaja Mohammad Asif himself went to Kabul, had important meetings, and got reassurances from the Afghan Taliban for collaboration to address the threat of terrorism. We'll be looking onto this particular topic of how the US is going to collaborate with Pakistan and assist Pakistan in its counter-terrorism efforts, and what could be expected when it comes to the Afghan authorities in their collaboration with Pakistan to address this threat of terrorism. And for that, and to talk and take a deeper look into this particular issue, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Nasir Ali Khan, his former ambassador. Mr. Khan, thank you very much for your time, for being with us. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And we are also honored to have been joined in the studio by Ms. Shazia and Cheema. She is expert in international relations. Ms. Shazia, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. At the same time, on Skype, we are being joined by Brigadier retired Mahmood Shah. He's senior analyst. Brigadier Shah, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, Ambassador Khan. Now, there is a hint by the US officials during this counterterrorism dialogue of reviving that post-9/11 era initiatives to assist Pakistan. So let's go a little back in history. What were the broader contours and how successful those initiatives were when Pakistan became the frontline ally with the US in the war on terror?
The relationship with the United States, let me first start by saying, is extremely important to us. Apart from the fact that it is our largest export destination, it casts a very large influence on the international finance institutions, and because of that and the conditions, economic conditions in Pakistan, we do need them on our side. Having said that, unfortunately, our relationship with the United States has mostly been transactional. And this particular initiative or overture that they have made is again focusing on a very narrow aspect. I'm grateful that they're doing this, because when they left Afghanistan in 2021 in August, there was a sense of euphoria in Pakistan, and they thought that now, you know, a government which is receptive to our concerns is installed in Kabul, and we are going to have a good time. A lot of our issues will be sorted out. And the most important one, of course, was the fact that the TTP was taking refuge there and they promised initially to make sure that their country would not be used, to launch terrorist acts elsewhere. Now, what I would have liked to see is, of course, a more broad-based relationship, a more comprehensive and long-lasting relationship, because I do believe that although they have some concerns about CPEC and our relationship with China, neither Pakistan nor China wants to exclude the United States at the expense of China. As far as their new partner, strategic partner, India is concerned, I think that India is taking the Americans up the garden path, so to speak, because they have more than $125 billion of trade with China. They are never going to jeopardize that. And both countries being nuclear armed, they are never going to let a conflict escalate. So they're never going to have a war with China because of the Americans. So as far as they can take as much benefit as possible, they will do that. So that would include, let's say, investments in India from the United States. Now this is where the India-Pakistan relationship comes in, because if I were a serious investor in India, I would be concerned that there are ongoing conflicts with the neighbors, so my capital would be at risk. So it's in the interest of the Americans, the Indians, Pakistanis, all of us, to actually have good relations in the region. But I think I don't want to go too long on this. I have a few things that we can discuss a little later.
Sure. Your point is well. Let me bring in Ms. Shazia also into the discussion. Now, this counter-terrorism dialogue, how significant do you think it is at this point in time, although the US has withdrawn from Afghanistan, but it is continuously expressing its support for the counter-terrorism measures for Pakistan. Of course, there are shared interests based on the shared values also. So the kind of statement we've got from the US Embassy also speaks volumes that both the countries have shared interest, and when it comes to the stability and security of this particular region also. So do you also think the US seems to have that very similar sort of concern as it had before, after even the withdrawal of the troops from Afghanistan?
Mr. Tehami, I will be more blunt about that. Like, America wanted to come back, and this is a good opportunity for America to be here. First, America asked for our help, and we helped America for a long time, and we paid the cost. Now, America is offering help, helping us. And let's see how that help will continue, and at what aspect they are actually helping us. And of course, I cannot close my eyes toward the ulterior motives. I mean, as a layman, why America all of a sudden again wants to come into this geographic location after leaving Afghanistan in a chaotic situation. But for our audience, we have to recapitulate the previous visit of this anti-terrorist dialogue from Pakistan and Afghanistan. Afghanistan, according to my sources, Afghanistan during that meeting told Pakistan that we have to start that rehabilitation program again of TTP, which our PTI government has started after Zarb-e-Azab. And a Pakistani delegation, they gave the irrefutable evidence of the connection between TTP and TTA. And having said that, this is going toward the same situation. If we have to stop the attacks, we have to rehabilitate them, and at what cost? By accommodating them, or even by paying them some money, or including them in mainstream. I don't know what they mean by rehabilitation, and why Afghan government is asking for that rehabilitation. And now the America is coming for that entire, in this situation, and where US is going to be fit in. And there is another thing, a very important thing, and Pakistani media has not covered it. The attack in Balochistan, like the day before yesterday, another terrorist organization has accepted the responsibility of that, and that organization wrote a letter to CNN, Tehrik-e-Jihad Pakistan. And what if that Tehrik-e-Jihad Pakistan is another brand name for TTP? And what if Afghan government and Pakistan, we are sitting together and we are getting assurances and we are giving assurances of TTP not being a problem in Pakistan. So what if there is another brand name and that is creating problem? And who will be responsible for that? If Afghan government is taking responsibility for TTP, they are not going to take responsibility for any other Tehrik-e-Jihad or whatever Tehrik that is. So these situations are not as easy, and they were never been easy. And why in this scenario America wants to come back, in my humble opinion, yes, America cannot leave this geography, this location. It's difficult for America to not to be here.
So Ms. Shazia, what makes you say that Taliban Afghanistan is defending or sort of owning the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan? Because the kind of statements that we have recently seen coming from their leadership goes on to deny that the TTP is operating from the Afghan soil.
During that meeting, Tehrik-e-Taliban Afghanistan, they have their own reservations, and Pakistani, they have provided irrefutable evidences and in the form of a presentation. These are my sources. Our side, we presented the names and the places of the people like TTP and where they are settled, whom they are in connection with, who is supporting from Afghanistan to them. So this much data we have, and we have presented this to Afghan interim government.
Right, I'll come back to this particular point. Let me bring in Brigadier Shah into the discussion also. Brigadier Shah, now this two-day counter-terrorism dialogue between Pakistan and the US. The kind of statements that we have seen coming from the US Embassy, it depicts that US remains determined to maintain its cooperation for the regional stability and security when it comes to the counter-terrorism domain, especially with Pakistan. What do you understand? Do you think the US remains concerned with the same level of threat perception from this particular region vis-a-vis Afghanistan as there was a threat perception to it when it invaded Afghanistan?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for calling me on this program. In fact, nobody expects the present Afghan ruler, that is the Taliban government, to turn Afghanistan into a modern state. But at least this had been stated by Iranian leadership, that they are not prepared for making a state an Islamic state. Somehow they don't have the study, they don't have the model to, like they have made an Islamic state, and they are running it successfully. So the Taliban, for that matter, cannot be expected to have a state in that fashion. The second is that America has gone from this area, but their focus remains throughout on the world, that a place does not become a heaven for terrorists, all sorts of terrorists. So they are looking at Afghanistan from that point of view. And lately, whatever happened in Pakistan in terms of suicide attacks and so forth, and then their insistence that we should have some negotiation with them, which was not successful. So the question is that, and these very TTP people, who are they? Who are they financed about? Their finances comes from India. So I think America is looking at all these things, and they had had made an initial statement that we would help Pakistan and they would see that Afghanistan does not become a haven for terrorists, all sorts of terrorists, whether they are TTP or they are some other terrorist groups which are there somehow. The Afghan government appears to be not paying attention to this aspect. They have to have a very firm grip on administration inside Afghanistan. Only then they will be considered a responsible government. They made these statements and it is included in Doha Agreement that they will not, the Afghan side, be used against its neighbor. And somehow their style is being used against particularly Pakistan. And one or two incidents which occurred, it really awakened Americans to this situation, and they have reached up to Pakistan for having some cooperation to see that Afghanistan does not become a haven for this. And I think all steps which will be necessary in this aspect should be done. In fact, under the circumstances, even Indians feel free to support these people financially and at the same time carry out propaganda against Pakistan, that Pakistan is the one which is spreading terrorism, whereas Pakistan is a victim of terrorism through the joint efforts of international terrorists and also Indian money which is coming to them. So I think this is the situation and it is a good sign. We should be expecting much from America since they have left the area. Their stakes are not that high when they were here, but they have stakes. They would like to see that Afghanistan does not become a haven for terrorism.
Right, Brigadier Shah, when we talk about when the U.S. Troops withdrew from Afghanistan back in 2021, after that there were reports that the kind of technology and the weapons, the modern weaponry they brought into Afghanistan after the troops withdrew from there, all that technology and the weapons were taken over by various militant groups over there. Now, recently we have seen the former IG Khyber Pakhtunkhwa also hinting towards this fact that the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban militants are using that modern technology and those modern weapons also. So when we talk about the US cooperation or unconditional support to Pakistan in this particular domain, so shouldn't Pakistan be expecting the US to transfer the same level or the grade of technology and the same level of modern weaponry to Pakistan to deal with that particular threat?
I think that sort of a technology is available in the international market. Pakistan can acquire, has already acquired. This is not something which is special to America. Thermal imaging technology, or for that matter, snipers, smart snipers, Pakistan already has these and can obtain more if required. And Pakistan has a very large number of these aerial technology which is coming through China. Pakistan is strong enough, and I think there is no requirement to really acquire something new from America for this. But their support, for example, they are the ones who can tell India that better stop supporting these terrorists in Afghanistan against Pakistan, and there will be certain limiting factors on Indian ambitions in this sort of thing. And even when we get a little sort of ready for these sort of things, we will see that the effect of this TTP on Pakistan will reduce. The actual thing is that initially we were confused. There was lack of clarity in the government policy on this. Nobody, for example, in these aspects, there was China also who had demanded that, and they had assured that Afghanistan style will not be used. They suggested to them also have negotiation with that sort of sections which is operating against China. They refused. There are Central Asian republics. They never carried out any negotiation with these terrorists. It was only Pakistan, and I think the government policy, which was basically wrong, that they started these negotiations, and that gave so much of air to these TTP people that the delegation was brought and presented to the parliament. And in the parliament, they say we should be given an embassy in a third country where we can negotiate and so on and so forth. This is the level to which whereas they are simple criminals, they need to be brought to Pakistan, they need to be handed over to Pakistan, and they should be placed before the courts. Our courts are not very good either. They will be able to punish all those people, but whatever process is this, they should be put to that process, and if they leave them, they should be left, they can live in Pakistan, and if they are punished, they should be able to live that punishment in Pakistan. So this is the straight sort of concept or policy should have been followed by Pakistan, which Pakistan is following now. I'm sure with that, the effect of Taliban's terrorism in Pakistan will reduce. After all, Pakistan is not Afghanistan. And these people are used to environments in Afghanistan. Well, they can succeed in Afghanistan. They cannot succeed in Pakistan, where there is a regular government, there is a regular parliament, there is a constitution of Pakistan which is operating. Although many of these aspects you could criticize, for example, our courts or our parliament or our politicians and so on and so forth, but yet it is a regular country and it is not Afghanistan. And whatever these people are thinking, they are far behind us. They are far behind in time. I think they should realize that they cannot commit these sort of crimes against Pakistan and get off like that used to happen previously. In the tribal area, the law has been scrapped up, and the Constitution of Pakistan has been extended up to the zero line, and therefore there is no sort of place for those sorts of arrangements or negotiation which were previously done under the tribal law, because that was allowed under that law. But that law is no longer there, and therefore no negotiation. And lately I have seen that the Afghan government has also realized the flaw in their system, and the defense minister, who is Maulvi Yaqub, he has said in the cabinet that why are they allowing these people to carry out these terrorist activities in Pakistan, and why should, and there is one or two factions in Taliban who are supporting them, and not really all the Taliban. And I think they have realized the mistake, and they will.
Right, Brigadier Shah, I'll come back to you on the capacity of the Afghan Taliban to deal with this particular threat. Ambassador Khan, as Brigadier Shah has highlighted a very important point, we saw the role of the peace spoilers during the Afghan peace and reconciliation efforts in the process also. Now, Brigadier Shah is of the opinion when it comes to the US expression of support, it should impress upon India to stop sponsoring such type of militants to operate against the state of Pakistan. Do you think the US happens to be in such a position or has that kind of a leverage to impress upon India to not sponsor those militant outfits?
Whether it can or not, if it makes the effort, it is in our interest. We've got to understand that the US interest in this engagement is primarily counter-terrorism with a view to curtailing money laundering, terrorist financing, cyber security, okay? That is their interest. Apart from the fact that if Afghanistan the system starts to break down, it may create a vacuum where other terrorist groups can come and they can thrive there. Now, from past experiences you've seen, that when terrorism grows freely in a country like Afghanistan, it has global implications. So, but that is not the urgent problem that the US has. Conditions have not reached that point. We know, and so do they. So their interest right now, because for example, cyber security, if somebody sits here and hacks into the American railway system or the airports, they can cause tremendous damage. So they would like to cooperate with us in this field. Similarly, terrorism anywhere. Pakistan could be a place where they were laundering the money or training somebody and sending them somewhere else, anywhere. It could be anywhere. So it is in their interest to be close to us, to cooperate with us in this field. Where is our interest? Our interest is primarily that Afghanistan should become a stable country. And as Brigadier Saab said, we must remove this threat of the TTP. We did make a mistake in trying to appease them and in trying to say that we are going to have peace, we'll negotiate with them, because all they did was they bought time, they bought the opportunity to transfer their families to safe places, and then when the time came, they broke the ceasefire and started the attacks. Okay, now, first of all, we ought to realize there are very few people. They're not like a country you're fighting. But on the other hand, it's not a uniform army that you can see and attack. So these are, in a sense, guerrillas who are in civilian dress can merge with the population. But as Brigadier Saab said, in FATA now the situation is different. Not only is there a Pakistani law that applies, but also the people who live there, they are now willing to stand up and fight the TTP or fight terrorism because they've had enough of this. So these things and the fact that our border fence is being continuously attacked and broken, these are the concerns and interests of Pakistan. Now, if the United States can help us in strengthening, monitoring, patrolling the border, if the United States can help in providing information, then it will be to our advantage. So we have to have a quid pro quo. Our leadership has to take this opportunity to say, we are doing this for you, and this is what we'd like you to do for us. Okay? Because as I said, this is a very, very transactional thing. Months before they got out of Afghanistan, an ex-ambassador, US ambassador who used to be here, gave an interview, an extensive interview to some security seminar, and he said that, you know, Pakistan, this is way back in March of 2021, he said Pakistan is not really relevant to the US anymore. We have pivoted towards the Asia or Indo-Pacific, and the Indo-Pacific starts from Wagah and goes up to Wellington. So, you know, you're really irrelevant. And I would advise you to kind of reinvent yourself and try and see where you will fit into global things. Now, these are mixed signals in a sense. So in 2021, we were irrelevant, and now you're coming back to us. Clearly, it is because you have an interest. Well, if both our interests are going to converge here, vis-a-vis security, we are willing to cooperate with you. But where else can they help us? They can also help us in identifying the financing of the TTP, whether it is coming from Saudis or it's coming from the UAE. I mean, I am just speculating, but what I'm trying to say is they can identify, they have the tools to identify financing. War is expensive business. So in order to fight with us, they have to be financed from and armed from somewhere, okay? Now, they can find out the finance and they can influence the countries from where this financing is.
So what about India?
Coming. India plays its own game, but as I said in the beginning, if they will make that effort to try and say to India that, look here, it is in our interest to have peace in this region, and we have enough evidence that you are arming or that you are funding the TTP, we would like you to desist from this. Now, I can't be sure whether India will cooperate with them in this. They might have their own agenda. but at least the Indians will be exposed. So if they're willing to do that, it's going to be to the
Haven't
advantage.
they already been exposed, because we saw very lengthy
Yes,
presses
but
by
as far as
the
the
interim
US
minister
is
also.
concerned,
Right.
as far as the US is concerned, then it will be exposed. So the US can help a great deal in this situation. But as I said, it should not be just specifically this. They can help us with our economic situation, not necessarily giving us cash assistance, but as I said, the development finance
Why not?
institutions.
Why not cash assistance? Because I
They
mean,
can.
of course, if you are going to have that counter-terrorism measure and going to have operations against these terrorist outfits, of course, it will incur costs. And at this point in time, as Pakistan is faced
That
with the
they
economic,
will have to. That
Yeah.
they will have to. In terms of equipment, like we had the Coalition Support Fund. If we are fighting a war that they have an interest in, that they will. But I'm talking about overall support for our budget, budgetary support or development support. They seem to have changed their attitude towards this. Although, you'd be surprised to know that international assistance for the United States, USAID, etc., is less than 1% of the budget of the United States, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because rather than have military adventures, they ought to spend more money on, and I'm not talking about the GDP, I'm talking about the budget, less than 1%. If they give more assistance, they can make more friends, and they can also provide greater stability in different regions.
let me take Ms. Shazia's take on this particular thing. When Pakistan is faced with economic difficulties, and US expresses continuously to help Pakistan out. Now, when such type of measures are put in place, of course, it incurs the costs also. So can we expect budgetary assistance coming from the US also?
No, we cannot, because recently I have heard somebody talking about like stopping even the aid, financial aid to Pakistan and two other countries, and it was in the American Senate. Somebody was talking, I don't know the name. As a skeptical observer, my problem is how America is going to resolve this terrorist problem now, and what was not sufficient prior to that, when America was already here, and why this problem was not solved, or why this problem ever accumulated and turned out to be like a giant as it is today. That's my personal observation. What America has today to stop it, which America does not have like yesterday, and leave the Afghanistan in such a mess. Yes, we were happy about that, and we thought like despite of the Ashraf Ghani government, this government will be more friendly and more proactive in our stance. But we have tested that we are in the same problem, we are in the same pit, and we have no way out from that. And the way out is again America, and there is also a public opinion about that. I mean, the politics of the power corridor is a different thing, and the public perception is a different thing. So how America is going to be so friendly now, and how America is going to be so in control now, and why, what was not there when America was here, and
especially when they couldn't be in control
exactly,
of those governments, governments
exactly,
which
and
were
this is like, I'm not as expert as the Ambassador Saab and the Brigadier Saab, but these are a layman perception, and they are there, and they impact the broader terms. And other thing is, because I work on Indo-Pacific intensively, isn't it an other base camp for the Indo-Pacific inside the Pakistan? Because Joe Biden in his very first speech said that we are putting Afghanistan on back burner, and that was a mistake, and China took advantage of it, and now our prime importance will be to the Indo-Pacific. So so they have there is they have Quad in Indo-Pacific, they have AUKUS in Indo-Pacific, they have Five Eyes in Indo-Pacific. They have so many these fancy names in
And
Indo-Pacific.
then again comes the that very question that you've already raised. So why all of a sudden interest in Afghanistan once again?
That's the issue, and the Brigadier Saab pointed out that the TTP is fighting with the leftover remaining weapons, with that weaponry, and what if they left those weapons strategically? You know, they have to come back, and how we can use it in our favor. Are we in the position as a government level we can negotiate with them? In the power structure, like now it's very clear that you need us and these are our terms. So this is beyond me. Like, are we in the position? Maybe
So
Ambassador
this is the
Saab
time
can
to
put.
ask the US to do more for us.
Yeah, and what will be that more? I mean, what we want them to do more for us. I mean, why can't we control this TTP by ourselves? And why can America come and do that? Because we are always the muscles and the brain for Americans, and they are the wallets and the pockets. So why they want to be here physically again to control that terrorism which they have failed? So that's my naive opinion about that.
Right, Brigadier Shah, why do you think that all of a sudden this sort of an interest, the revitalization of which we have seen in the US ranks when it comes to cooperating with Pakistan to deal with this terrorism?
I think I said this a couple of months ago that people are looking at Afghanistan, how they are developing, how they are trying to run their government, and what is happening in Pakistan is important for the world. They are looking at it. Can this terrorism extend into Pakistan, like the TTP people who would like people to believe in that sense? So I think that is the way you could see that sooner or later the American will pay attention. Paying attention means they will come back into this area in terms of cooperation, and they can cooperate and they can help us a lot in the sense not that they give us any money. For example, in the present economic situation, a lot of money is going across the border into Afghanistan, and that is almost like helping the terrorism there. This sort of getting away of dollars from Pakistan. So I think I think Americans can help us in identifying this, and they have resources much above in terms of intelligence and things like this. And in Afghanistan, terrorism is one thing, and there are a lot of people who are dependent on smuggling. They are international smugglers. They are peddlers. They are all across this border. They are the ones who don't like this sort of barricade that we have put across. That why this? They were used to so all these things are in the interest of America to really stop this from Afghanistan. And if they want to control terrorism, they have to control finances. And those finances not only
so for
India.
that, beg your pardon for the interjection over here. So for that, doesn't that call for enhanced border security and better border management along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border? And for that, there has been a provision in the US budget for this year of around $15 million. Do you think that is sufficient to enhance that border security along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border?
For example, I would say that we shouldn't expect money in terms of amount that this much will come or this will not come, but their mere presence and coming in line with Pakistan and supporting Pakistan efforts in these things, even in the economic field where we are facing this dollar going across the border, if they can help us in some sort of intelligence sharing or something, that this is how. So we will have improvement in Pakistan, and these people are scared from America. They are not scared from Pakistan alone, although Pakistan is a sufficient force it has to really stop this, somehow our political leadership is weak. They don't put up sort of policies. We also are looking for legitimacy of the political order, whether there should be election or there shouldn't be election. These sort of things we are all involved, and the country's economy is really in tailspin. So we need to look at this from the Pakistan point of view.
Right, Brigadier Shah, we are short of time. One quick question. I want your quick take regarding this particular thing. When we talk about the will and the capacity of the Afghan Taliban, we've been discussing this particular thing, whether it is the matter of will or is it the matter of capacity on the part of the Afghan Taliban when it comes to taking a concrete action, especially against the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. Now, we've recently seen that the interim Afghan government has taken action against the militants of the IS Khorasan, and they've taken out the chief of the military and intelligence operations over there. They've also detained key figures of that particular group also. First of all, can we expect similar sort of concrete action? If they can take an action against ISK, why can't they take an action, similar sort of concrete action, and detain those militants of banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, and then hand them over to Pakistan also, so that the bilateral relationship between Pakistani authorities and the interim Afghan authorities could become better?
I think a very good question that you put across. The actual thing is that the previous Taliban that we are used to were unified under Mullah Omar. And whatever Mullah Omar used to say, everybody used to follow. Unfortunately, they lack that central authority now. And there are groups, for example, this Taliban group, particularly that we are talking about, is being helped by these people who are just opposite North Waziristan. They are Durrani tribe, and their leader, Taliban Siraj Haqqani, is interior. But other ministers, for example, like Maulvi Yaqub or even the Kandahar Taliban, do not support. So I think with that, if a sort of differences occur amongst themselves and then they say, we should be doing this, then only. Otherwise, in general, that I talk about, I would say that they do not have that ideology to turn Afghanistan into a state, whether an Islamic state they mean to say, have proper laws and everything. They are not like Iranians who worked out a system, and according to the system, they have a government which they call Wilayat-e-Faqir, whereas they, from their side, from the Iranian side, I heard one of the bands that these people do not have an idea what sort of Islamic government. If you say a Sunni government will make some framework of the government, how it will be run, how its finances will be looked after, and things like that. Somehow I don't see them growing up with time. Until they have the basic ideas. Right. They don't have those.
Right. Brigadier Retired Mahmood Shah, Senior Analyst, joining us on the Skype. Thank you very much for your time, for being with us at Views on News tonight. We really appreciate your time. In the studio, we were joined by Mr. Nasir Khan, former ambassador. Thank you very much for your time also. And Ms. Shazia Anwer, Cheema, expert in international relations. Thank you very much for your time also for being with us at Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Quite an enlightening discussion. A lot of expectations when the US expresses support for Pakistan in the counter-terrorism domain, especially when Pakistan is faced with economic difficulties. So there are a lot of expectations that when Pakistan became the frontline ally in the war on terror with the US and paid a heavy price in terms of sacrifices made in terms of economic losses also, as well as in the number of people who were martyred in that particular thing. Now it's the time for the US to do more for Pakistan in that domain. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.